I'm caught between two evils, I generally like to take the one I never tried.
Now, take care of these men.
Yes, give them all my address.
Do you like girls?
Of course. But do we have time?
On screen, they were heroes, goddesses, the faces the world adored. But when the applause fades and the studio lights go dark, those people face the very things born from fame, pride, power, and urges that spiral out of control. Once you hold everything, the true nature of a person begins to reveal itself. Behind the gleaming Oscar statues and blazing red carpets lies another world, where a comedic genius was denied re-entry for entanglements deemed forbidden. A movie star was jailed simply for speaking openly about longing, and a young icon died in a mysterious accident just after hinting he would expose power-laden gatherings in the shadows. They climbed to the very peak of glory, only to fall into the abyss of desire, where light and darkness blend into one. Below are 15 legendary stars once worshipped by the world, before the very hunger within them became the flame that burned everything down. Chapter 1. Warren Beatty, a lifetime trapped by the label, addicted to love.
Didn't I say I'd be back at the end of the week?
The end of the week is Friday.
The end of the week is Friday? Saturday's not the end of the week anymore, huh?
Jack, you said you'd be back Tuesday.
What difference does it make? What do you think I've been doing?
The 1970s were an era of exploding freedom in Hollywood, and Warren Beatty was its emblem. Born in 1937 in Virginia, he was known not only for flawless looks, but for a private life that cost the press thousands of pages. After the success of Splendor in the Grass, 1961, Beatty quickly ascended to A-list stardom. But what made him even more famous was the list of women who passed through his life. Natalie Wood, Julie Christie, Diane Keaton, Joan Collins, then Madonna. Each relationship was likened by the press to a separate chapter in Hollywood's ongoing novel. People once called Beatty the most charming man of the 20th century. But after a 1985 Vanity Fair investigation, that image began to crack. The piece revealed he took notes after each relationship, even ranking the women he'd been with, a detail that left audiences both amazed and disappointed. Journalist George Rush wrote in the New York Daily News, "Beatty isn't addicted to love, he's addicted to being desired." When Reds, 1981, won 4 Oscars, it seemed he had washed away the noise. But only months later, a Washington Post report suggested 2 actresses had left the production midway because of complicated relationships with the director himself. From there, Beatty's career slowed, major roles grew scarce, and he vanished from red carpets for a decade. In an interview with CBS Sunday Morning, Beatty admitted, "Being wanted was once a reward, then it became a chain." At 60, the man who once had it all found himself alone before an old mirror. Though married to Annette Bening with children, the shadow of the past clung to him like a scar that would not fade. By then, Hollywood had learned that the spotlight doesn't just illuminate, it burns those who stand too close. And behind the curtain, another American icon was hiding a secret that would stun the world when revealed decades later. 2. Clark Gable, haunted by a secret child hidden for 50 years. In Hollywood's golden age, when giant posters covered Sunset Boulevard, no one outshone Clark Gable. He was Rhett Butler in Gone with the Wind, the man the world admired for his half-smile and warm baritone. Yet behind that gentlemanly facade lay a secret the Dream Factory colluded to hide for more than half a century. In 1935, Gable and actress Loretta Young co-starred in Call of the Wild in Alaska's icy wilds. On set, the two were said to have grown unexpectedly close, something the crew then considered commonplace between 2 stars. But only a few months later, Loretta vanished from Hollywood, citing serious illness. 9 months after that, she returned with a child the press described as a gift from an old friend. She named the baby Judy. No one dared ask further, and no one dared doubt it either. Loretta was a symbol of piety, while Clark Gable was the uncrowned king of American cinema. At that time, an unmarried movie star having a child was treated as a grave offense. Loretta had to tell her daughter she was adopted and live in fear for 3 decades. Meanwhile, Gable kept conquering Hollywood, winning an Oscar, receiving hundreds of letters daily, and being hailed by Photoplay as the man every woman hopes to meet once in her life. Only in the late 1990s, after both had passed away, did the truth emerge. Judy Lewis's memoir, Uncommon Knowledge, stunned America. She was Clark Gable's biological daughter. The curly hair, the eyes, the smile, she was his reflection. Loretta Young kept the secret until her final days because the era did not allow a woman to speak openly about a man's wrongdoing. The revelation shattered the image of the perfect king for later generations. The bitter twist. Gable died in 1960, never knowing that the child once denied had stood outside theaters, quietly watching her father's films. People say Hollywood makes legends with glitter, but there, legends are also built on agreed-upon untruths, sealed in the dark. Before the title King of Hollywood took hold, another man had once made the world kneel with laughter. Yet behind his wry charm lay a tragedy deeper than any role on screen. Number 3. Charlie Chaplin, barred from re-entering the U.S. over relationships with very young partners. In the mid-1920s, when silent theaters roared with laughter from The Kid and the Gold Rush, no one imagined that the man who made the world laugh was wrestling with shadows even Hollywood avoided. Charlie Chaplin, the tramp with the bowler hat and cane, was hailed as the soul of silent cinema. But behind the smile was a life forever chasing comfort and fighting loneliness. Chaplin grew up poor in London, abandoned, with a mother struggling with mental illness and a father lost to drink. Hunger and a need for affection smoldered in him all his life. When fame arrived, he sought out women to fill that void. But his choices shocked the public. In 1918, at 29, Chaplin married Mildred Harris, a 16-year-old, after only weeks of acquaintance. The quiet Los Angeles ceremony was quickly exposed by the press. The Los Angeles Examiner blared, "The man who makes America laugh marries a schoolgirl bride." The marriage collapsed, a child did not survive, and the public began to suspect Chaplin's taste for innocence. The true earthquake came in 1924. At the height of the gold rush, Chaplin reconnected with Lita Grey, who had appeared briefly in The Kid at age 12. They reunited and quickly fell into a secret relationship. When word spread that she was pregnant, Chaplin rushed to marry her in Mexico to avoid scandal. He was 35. Lita had just turned 16. 3 years later, everything exploded. Lita filed for divorce, accusing him of treating love like a performance. The trial became the decade's biggest media spectacle. The New York Daily News wrote, "This is the most truthful film the Dream Factory has ever produced." Private letters, servants' testimonies, and intimate details of married life were laid bare. Fans who adored Chaplin suddenly saw a double image. On one side, a comedic genius, on the other, a man led by craving. The image of the kind-hearted tramp collapsed. Studios paused collaborations. Churches called for boycotts. Though Chaplin tried to mend the rift with city lights and modern times, it never truly healed. In 1943, Chaplin faced court again, this time opposite actress Joan Barry, who accused him of betrayal and abandonment during her pregnancy. Chaplin denied it, claiming a setup, but the media wanted a story, not a verdict. The court ordered support payments despite tests refuting paternity. Time called it the costliest legal war in Hollywood, while Life remarked, "A genius dragged into the mud of moral judgment." His career dimmed. In 1952, as he prepared to sail for London to premiere Limelight, The U.S. government revoked his re-entry permit, citing him as lacking moral fitness and incompatible with national values. Chaplin did not fight back. He moved to Switzerland and lived reclusively for the next 25 years, rarely mentioning Hollywood. From being praised as the soul of humanity, Chaplin ended his life in silence, surrounded by yellowed clippings of past scandals. In his small villa in Vevey, he once wrote, "I made the world laugh, but no one knew that all I wanted was forgiveness. A genius undone not by artistic failure, but by unchecked longing amid the whirlpool of fame." As the studio lights went out, Hollywood quickly found a new face, the swashbuckling hero the world thought invincible, until he too was pulled into the same spiral. 4. Errol Flynn, reputation wrecked after a notorious trial involving two teenage girls. Flynn was born in Tasmania and grew up on sea voyages with his father, a famed explorer. From childhood, he was intoxicated by triumph, by the drama of adventure, and by the belief that life was a stage with himself at the center. When fame came too soon, Flynn treated every party and admiring gaze as his due. Parties aboard the Sirocco, his yacht anchored off Malibu, became legend among Los Angeles elites. Wine, music, and young guests drawn to the glow of a real-life Robin Hood. In October 1942, the glow shattered. Two young women, Peggy Satterlee, 17, and Betty Hansen, 16, filed charges against Errol Flynn in Los Angeles County Court, alleging he had crossed the line during private yacht gatherings. Overnight, the nation was stunned. The Los Angeles Examiner ran screaming headlines, and Time called it the scandal that could topple Warner Brothers. For 4 weeks, every detail was dissected in public. The Los Angeles Times recorded each question and reaction, describing Flynn as calm, as if acting in his own film. More than 200 reporters crammed the courtroom. 1,500 people lined up outside just to glimpse Robin Hood in the flesh. Flynn denied everything, saying he was the victim of hysteria and envy. Though acquitted in February 1943, the price for fame proved steep. The public no longer saw a hero, but a man intoxicated by the thrills of power. The Daily Mirror wrote, "Flynn may have won in court, but he lost in the hearts of fans." From that moment, the phrase "in like Flynn" was born, suggesting boldness tinged with excess, a label he despised for the rest of his life. His career slid fast. Warner Brothers reduced his roles. Major projects were canceled. Flynn shifted to supporting parts, then went to Europe seeking work. But everything had changed. In later years, he lived in Jamaica, then Canada, far from Hollywood. Friends said he still held that old charm, but his eyes had dulled and his voice had lost the confidence that once enchanted millions. He chased thrills in ways dangerous to his health. In October 1959, on a trip to Vancouver with his girlfriend, Flynn collapsed suddenly in a hotel room and died at 50. The press stated simply, "Hollywood's last great adventurer is gone." Those close to him said he had died long before, on the day he realized no victory on screen could save the real man. When a hero is swallowed by the thrill of power, one might think Hollywood had learned its lesson about limits. But soon after, another angel, praised as the emblem of purity, would force America to redefine the word morality. 5. Ingrid Bergman, condemned by the U.S. Senate and pushed out for a love deemed improper. Ingrid Bergman was once the model of innocence. With her role as Ilsa in Casablanca, 1942, she became the woman every man wishes to keep but none dares to possess. Yet just 7 years later, America turned its back. The media called her a moral threat, and the United States Senate passed a formal resolution condemning her, an act unprecedented in film history. In 1949, Bergman went to Italy to film Stromboli with director Roberto Rossellini. Amid the stark volcanic island, they fell in love. She wrote to her husband in America, confessing everything. The letter was leaked and appeared on the front page of the New York Times. A moral storm erupted. Religious groups and even senators called for a boycott. Senator Edwin C. Johnson declared on the Senate floor, "She has betrayed the image of American womanhood." A film star condemned in the legislature, something that had never happened before. Studios immediately ended contracts. Some theaters in Chicago, Boston, and Dallas refused to screen her films. At one Los Angeles ceremony, a giant poster of Bergman was torn apart to jeers. At the time, Bergman was expecting Rossellini's child. Unable to bear the pressure, she left America and lived in Europe for nearly a decade, branded a traitor to Hollywood ideals. Time, however, shifted. In 1956, Anastasia marked her spectacular return. When Ingrid Bergman's name was called at the Oscars, the whole room stood to applaud, not because she won, but because she dared to come back. Her story became a symbol of a woman who dared to love truthfully and accept responsibility for that love in an era that wanted her silent. Before her passing in 1982, Bergman told BBC London, "I do not live to please anyone. I live to feel." That sentence is engraved on her headstone in Stockholm, an enduring declaration that love, even when judged, is stronger than any rule. From that time on, Hollywood began to see a new kind of woman, one who dared to speak about what the world feared to hear, a woman whose mere presence on stage could make America blush. 6. Mae West, jailed for 8 days for bringing the topic of desire to Broadway.
I see a man in your life.
What, only one? Well, when I'm good, I'm very good. But when I'm bad, I'm better.
When people think of women in classic Hollywood, they imagine modesty, propriety, and devotion. Mae West arrived like a contrary wind. She wasn't conventionally beautiful, nor did she obey norms, yet with a glance and a smile she could hush an entire auditorium. In 1926, the play Sex, written, produced, and headlined by Mae West, premiered in New York. For the first time, audiences heard a woman speak plainly about yearning, to be loved, and to live honestly with one's feelings. The boldness infuriated city authorities. On April 19th, police raided Daly's 63rd Street Theater and arrested the entire company. New York Daily News blared, "The woman who makes Broadway blush is arrested." Mae West was sentenced to 8 days in jail and fined $500. What stunned everyone was her fearlessness. Leaving the courthouse, she flashed a radiant smile at a swarm of cameras and said, "I just had a free opening night on the front page." The image spread across America. From a small-time stage artist, Mae West became a symbol of candor and personal freedom. The headlines didn't stop. Moving to Hollywood, she kept testing the limits with films like She Done Him Wrong, 1933, and I'm No Angel, 1934. Her one-liners sent censors scrambling. Several theaters were told to cut scenes, yet box office receipts soared. Time once wrote, "Mae West needs no advertising. She only has to open her mouth for lines to form." By the 1930s, she was the highest-paid woman in America, surpassing even Clark Gable. The price, however, was steep. Studios kept their distance, radio networks banned her, and she was labeled indecent. Still, Mae West stood firm. She told the Los Angeles Examiner, "I'm not trying to teach women to rebel. I just want them to know that being themselves isn't a crime." When she died in 1980, the Los Angeles Times wrote, "She was the first to make the world understand that allure lies not in appearance, but in the courage to admit you have feelings." A woman who challenged society with her own voice, she opened the door for a new era of screen sirens, including a platinum-haired star who made the world kneel before both her beauty and her tragedy. 7. Jean Harlow, the men around her passed away under mysterious circumstances. In the early 1930s, Jean Harlow walked out of MGM stages like a streak of silver. Platinum hair so bright cameras had to stop down, porcelain skin, lips that were both innocent and defiant. She was America's blonde bombshell, yet behind the towering posters trailed a series of misfortunes surrounding the men in her life, whispers of a curse no one could name. In 1927, Harlow married Charles McGrew at just 16. Within 2 years, the McGrew fortune plummeted, the marriage collapsed, and she left with nothing. In 1932, she wed Paul Byrne, a powerful MGM producer. 2 months after their Beverly Hills wedding, Byrne was found gone in the bathroom beside a short handwritten note. Police called it a tragic incident, and the studio fell silent as if someone had cut the power. Harlow remained quiet and kept working, but from that moment, every lens framed her through the haze of suspicion. The following years saw men around Harlow repeatedly struck by fate. One went bankrupt, another suffered a car accident, another fell seriously ill just as they planned to marry. The Los Angeles Record once ran a chilling, blunt headline: "Men around Jean disappear." The coincidences fed the rumor mill. Was her beauty a flame that drained the life of anyone too close? No proof, only stories multiplied in whispers. Harlow filmed as if racing the clock. Red dust, dinner at 8, bombshell. The promo photos grew ever more dazzling, even as her eyes betrayed fatigue. In June 1937, while shooting Saratoga with Clark Gable, Harlow suddenly collapsed. 6 days later, she died at 26 from acute kidney failure. Thousands crowded Forest Lawn. Time wrote, "She lived faster than angels fly." Those who loved Harlow said she didn't lose to illness but to a world that drained her strength. A beauty so bright it scorched everything around it, especially the men who vowed to stay. As that silver light flickered out, Hollywood braced for a louder, longer storm. 8 walks down the aisle, 8 tolling bells for a hunger that would never sleep. 8. Elizabeth Taylor. 8 blazing, tear-streaked marriages. Elizabeth Taylor entered Hollywood at 12, carrying those legendary violet eyes the press joked could silence a room. But Taylor wasn't just a movie star. She was an emotional whirlwind sweeping through half a century, leaving 8 weddings, 7 husbands, and a mountain of echoes. Why would someone who had everything still keep searching? The first wedding to Conrad Hilton Jr., 1950, was broadcast live on NBC like a national event, then collapsed after 8 months. Next came Michael Wilding and Mike Todd, the only one Taylor always mentioned with gratitude. When Todd died in a plane crash, comfort turned into uproar as Taylor moved on with Eddie Fisher, the husband of her close friend Debbie Reynolds. Life splashed red ink. America's homewrecker, and clergy invoked her name as a caution. Taylor answered by continuing to love. In 1961, on the Rome set of Cleopatra, she met Richard Burton. 2 fires that refused to yield collided. Vatican statements condemned them, and the Daily Mail asked, "Is this love or destruction?" They married, divorced, remarried, and split again. Invoices for diamonds, yachts, champagne, and serial honeymoons read like an epic. In interviews, Taylor admitted only one thing: she loved so fiercely she burned herself. From the 1970s on, Taylor gradually stepped back from film sets, but the title, Queen of Scandal, clung like an uninvited shadow. Vanity Fair, 2007, called her the last woman who dared to live by instinct. When Taylor died in 2011, people found not only statuettes and scripts, but also handwritten letters from her husbands, neatly folded, tied with ribbon, and kept like sacred relics. 8 weddings never answered when is enough, but proved one truth. Some hearts are born to seek, because standing still hurts more. And while that storm still raged, Hollywood suddenly faced the opposite face. A delicate young man with uneasy eyes, pulled into locked rooms where fame was traded for unspoken compromises no one dared to write down. 9. James Dean gone amid rumors of a cover-up. After he threatened to reveal secrets about power-filled parties, James Dean needed only 3 films: East of Eden, Rebel Without a Cause, Giant, to become an icon. Beautiful like an apology and cold like a rain that hasn't ended, Dean was the face of a generation that wanted to live truthfully in an era of strict morality. But for that very reason, he crashed into nameless walls. Born in 1931 in Indiana, Dean came to Los Angeles with a thin wallet and an oversized hunger. He soon caught the eye of those with influence. Confidential hinted that Dean was backed by a few well-known directors and managers. In houses along the slopes of Hollywood Hills, people hosted closed-door gatherings. There, rising young men were taught how to smile for the camera, how to say things that pleased producers, and sometimes had to comply with the private preferences of those who held the casting keys. It was all hearsay, no paperwork, only fear that made people believe they owed favors. Rumors about a non-conforming private life clung to Dean. Some co-stars spoke of ambiguous relationships, including with older male stars. Tabloids claimed he once fled a party after being forced to sign image protection terms. Some swore they heard Dean say he would go public with this town's dirty secrets, even threatening to write a book. The Hollywood Reporter, 1956, mentioned an intention to tell all, while also insisting there was no concrete proof. Powerful names were whispered alongside the stories, then vanished behind the wooden doors of big offices. On September 30, 1955, on Highway 466, Dean's Porsche 550 Spider, nicknamed Little Bastard, collided with a Ford that turned across his path. Police called it an accident, but theories multiplied. The Ford's odd appearance, conflicting witnesses, invisible debts that needed closing. No one had proof, yet few believed it was just fate. Dean left at 24, leaving behind those sad eyes on posters and a question still unanswered. What must a soul pay to live honestly in a world that worships appearances? James Dean's legacy is not only the slicked-back hair and leather jacket, but the first crack in the glossy wall of the Dream Factory, ushering in an era where a chilling role could make the world shudder because no one knew where the line lay between character and the real person. Anthony Perkins, a life lived in fear, forced to hide his true self. Some performances are so immense they prevent the actor from ever returning to themselves. For Anthony Perkins, the role of Norman Bates in Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, 1960, was not only a cinematic summit, it was a mirror reflecting a life imprisoned by fear of his own nature. Perkins was born in 1932 in New York, the son of stage actor Osgood Perkins. When his father died as he turned 5, Anthony grew up emotionally deprived, reserved, and always feeling different. Upon arriving in Hollywood, Paramount promoted him as the boy next door, and he appeared in Friendly Persuasion, 1956, earning an Oscar nomination. But filmmakers soon sensed that behind those pensive eyes lay something deeper, a nameless unease. In the Hollywood of the 1950s, where anything outside the norm was punished, Perkins lived a double life. In public, he was courteous and gentle. In the Beverly Hills shadows, he frequented private gatherings hosted by directors and producers, spaces where people like him could breathe. Those once close to him recalled paparazzi ambushing him at the Chateau Marmont, forcing Paramount to pay for the image to be buried forever. Norman Bates came to him like destiny. Hitchcock chose Perkins precisely for the strange fragility in his gaze. In Psycho, Bates is a man with fractured identity, burdened by repressed guilt and conflict. Perkins became so real in the role that after filming, he suffered weeks of insomnia and often asked himself, "Am I playing Norman, or is Norman playing me?" Though the film brought glory, it was also a curse. Psycho's outsized success forever fused Perkins with the image of a damaged mind. Combined with gossip about his private life in tabloids like Confidential and The Hollywood Reporter, his career stalled. Anthony married late to photographer Barry Berenson, trying to craft a portrait of family man, yet he never escaped the persistent anxiety. In 1992, Anthony Perkins passed away quietly in Los Angeles. Only after his death did the media acknowledge he had lived for years with illness he dared not disclose, fearing stigma would destroy what remained. The New York Times wrote then, "He was a man who spent his life afraid of his own instincts." People say Norman Bates didn't destroy Perkins. It was a society that forbade authenticity, which pushed him to the edge. Hollywood never shed that cost, because only a few years later, another Latin legend would become an even harsher example. 11. Ramon Novarro, the tragedy of a star whose identity was condemned and who was isolated until the end. Before Antonio Banderas or Gael Garcia Bernal, Hollywood had a prince from Mexico, Ramon Novarro. He was the first Latin idol of the 1920s, hailed as the rightful heir to Rudolph Valentino, a global emblem of masculine allure. Yet, like Valentino, his life ended in darkness, stemming from truths the era refused to name. Born in 1899 in Durango, Mexico, Novarro moved to Los Angeles as a child. He began in silent films at MGM, and within a few years, his turn as Ben-Hur in Ben-Hur, A Tale of the Christ, 1925, catapulted him to the summit of fame. People likened Novarro to a speaking sunset, refined and magnetic. Backstage, though, he was torn between the saintly image the studio built and the person he really was. Columnists like Hedda Hopper hinted that Novarro's lifestyle was too unrestrained for a matinee idol. MGM spent money to buy up leaked private photos, while his agent staged made-for-press romances with actresses like Joan Crawford or Dorothy Jordan to reassure the public. By the 1950s, as Hollywood entered a new era, Novarro was forgotten. He lived quietly in his Laurel Canyon home, occasionally inviting strangers for conversation. According to Los Angeles court records, on the night of October 30, 1968, two young men came to his house seeking assistance. But the evening ended in a way no one expected. The media then fixated on his personal life more than the case, using disparaging language to describe his private habits. The Herald Examiner blared, "Ben-Hur hero falls to temptation." The incident stunned Hollywood, yet no one stepped forward to defend him. His name was omitted from film tributes for decades. Only in the early 1990s, as LGBTQ+ movements grew, did historians begin to restore his legacy, recognizing him as a pioneer rejected by his time. That story closed in silence, a painful silence for those who only wanted to love in their own way. But the quiet would be broken when Hollywood saw another seemingly perfect star crumble because a tabloid exposed a secret he had tried to hide all his life. 12. Tab Hunter, a career shattered by a tabloid that exposed a forbidden private life.
Do you like girls?
Of course. But do we have time?
In the 1950s, no one embodied the all-American boy more clearly than Tab Hunter. He had everything: bright features, athletic build, confident smile. He sang, danced, acted, and graced the cover of Life magazine under the line, "The All-American Dream." But Hollywood never forgives a dream with a crack. Born in 1931, Hunter was discovered by director Dick Clayton at a California stables. Warner Bros. Quickly signed him to an exclusive contract, and turned him into the nation's youth idol. Films like Battle Cry, 1955, and Damn Yankees, 1958, made him a global heartthrob. Yet at his peak, Hunter kept a secret known only to a few insiders, and that very secret destroyed him. Hunter had a deep relationship with Anthony Perkins. They met at Paramount and dated quietly at small gatherings hosted by trusted friends like Natalie Wood and Rock Hudson. Hollywood, however, would not accept it. A reporter from Confidential, a tabloid specializing in private lives, spotted them leaving the Beverly Hills Hotel the same night in 1955. Soon after, the paper ran a story. Teen idol at an unauthorized party. The item spread so fast that Warner Bros. Ordered him to sever all risky ties. Every contract vanished within a week. RCA removed him from its marquee roster. Directors declined to hire him. In a month, Hunter went from Hollywood's brightest star to an outsider. He left the United States for Europe, taking only minor stage roles. Nearly 50 years later, in 2005, Hunter released his memoir Tab Hunter Confidential, recounting a lifetime spent wearing the mask of the American dream. The book quickly became a bestseller. He described being forced to sign pledges to avoid dangerous relationships, even staging a faux romance with Natalie Wood to save his image. Asked if he regretted anything, Hunter answered softly, "I only regret losing half my life to being afraid of myself." He passed away in 2018, just shy of 87. The press called him the last hero of classic Hollywood who chose to live honestly when others had to remain silent. Stories like these make it clear. Hollywood's light is dazzling, but the closer you get to the center, the hotter it burns. Fame never travels alone. It carries the shadow of craving, where a single misstep can turn a career to ash. And in the world of music, that pattern was about to repeat itself, with a voice praised as angelic, slowly singed by his own impulses. 13. Sam Cooke passed away in a motel amid a night of excess and betrayal.
And you ought to see her go, chick twisting through the rock and roller. Oh yeah, you find the young and old.
On the night of December 11, 1964, saxophones still echoed from Los Angeles bars. But in a small room at the Hacienda Motel on South Figueroa, the golden voice of soul Sam Cooke was facing a fate he himself could not imagine. When police arrived, they found Cooke in a state of loss of control, wearing only a loose coat. The next morning, newspapers blared, "Music icon dies in mystery inside a motel room." Sam Cooke was born in 1931 in Mississippi, the son of a minister. He grew up in the church, sang gospel from childhood, and became a pioneer of soul, music that carried the cry of both body and spirit. But that very fusion drew his life toward danger. Cooke sought inspiration in whirlwind romances. Journalist Tony Brown once wrote in the Chicago Defender, he couldn't write unless he was in love with someone, even if only for a night. Cooke's career blazed with You Send Me, Chain Gang, and especially A Change Is Gonna Come, a hymn to freedom. But behind the glow, his private life was tangled. Cooke married Barbara Campbell, yet the marriage was surrounded by rumors of jealousy, betrayal, and nights away from home. Manager Alan Klein said that whenever touring, Cooke often turned hotel rooms into places to find something real. That fateful night, Cooke left Martoni's restaurant with a young woman named Elisa Boyer. They went to the Hacienda Motel, where his final hours unraveled chaotically. According to motel manager Bertha Franklin, Cooke pounded on the office door in a frenzy, looking for someone, and was restrained. Police closed the case as a sudden altercation, but family and friends doubted it. Producer J.W. Alexander told the Los Angeles Times, "Sam always believed he was being watched. He was too conspicuous, too daring in a world full of traps. People whispered that Cook was preparing to start his own label, a move that unsettled powerful figures. Some theories claimed the incident was arranged, with Elisa Boyer merely bait in a larger plan. Whatever the truth, no one denies that his own pursuit of pleasure and conquest pulled Cook into the dark. His funeral in Chicago drew more than 40,000 mourners. Aretha Franklin sang through tears, and Ray Charles bowed his head at the casket, softly saying, "He sang with all his heart, and he died because of that heart." Sam Cooke left at 33, and the unanswered question remains: are those who sing about love the very ones who are never fully loved? Less than 2 decades later, another would face a similar tragedy, a soul genius who tried to find God in the very whirlwind of desire within himself. 14. Marvin Gaye, taken by his own father in a family tragedy born of guilt. Marvin Gaye once said, "My music is prayer, but sometimes I pray with sin." That line sums up his life's tragedy, a genius trapped between the call of the flesh and the judgment of faith. Born in 1939 in Washington, D.C., Marvin grew up under the iron rule of his father, Reverend Marvin Gaye Sr., who considered any expression of longing a transgression. Yet that prohibition only sharpened Marvin's curiosity about the world outside. After signing with Motown Records in the early 1960s, he quickly rose with "Ain't No Mountain High Enough" and "I Heard It Through the Grapevine." His voice was warm as a confession and inviting as a whisper. In 1973, "Let's Get It On" arrived, sending the world into rapture. With delicate orchestration and near-murmured vocals, the song became a liturgy of pleasure. While fans crowned Marvin Gaye the soul of love, he saw it as wrongdoing. In the leaked diary Divided Soul, he wrote, "I loved so much I felt I betrayed God." His marriage to Anna Gordy, sister of Motown's founder, was another saga. 17 years his senior, Anna began as a passion and ended in bitterness. As the marriage frayed, Marvin openly dated younger women, including Janice Hunter, who inspired "Let's Get It On." Their love was ardent yet fraught, as Marvin wrestled with the chasm between longing and remorse. After the divorce, he released Here, My Dear, 1978, a work that chronicled the breakup in detail. Critics called it the unvarnished journal of a scorched soul, but behind the creativity came collapse. Marvin lost faith, withdrew, and sank into depression and isolation. In his final years, he returned to his parents' home in Los Angeles. The relationship with his father grew increasingly toxic. His father saw him as a son possessed by desire, while Marvin drowned in guilt. On April 1, 1984, just one day before his 45th birthday, a gunshot ended his life. The Los Angeles Times reported, "The man who sang of love died by hate." The tragedy did not end there. Marvin Gaye's death became a mirror for later generations. No matter their talent, they could be consumed by the very fire they kindled. Decades later, one of those was a singer with a voice called angelic, her life drifting toward a solitary abyss. 15. Whitney Houston, America's angel who lost everything in a whirlpool of love and substances. No one sang about love as purely as Whitney Houston. Her voice could make people believe those feelings were eternal. Yet, behind the radiance, Whitney stands as proof of the price paid when desire, fame, and loneliness share the same soul. Born in 1963 in Newark, New Jersey, Whitney was seen as God's favored child. Her mother, Cissy Houston, sang gospel, and Aretha Franklin was her godmother. From a young age, Whitney was groomed to be America's perfect emblem, graceful, gifted, scandal-free. But in her 20s, the entertainment world forced a choice between the angelic image and her true self. Behind the scenes, Whitney was close to Robin Crawford, her longtime friend and assistant. The two were rumored to share a bond beyond friendship. When Vanity Fair asked in 1991, Whitney only smiled. "I love Robin as I love myself." Years later, Crawford confirmed in her memoir that they had once shared a deep connection but ended it because the world would not allow it. In 1992, Whitney married singer Bobby Brown, a union the media dubbed the perfect storm. Brown was impulsive and jealous. Whitney longed to be truly loved. Their public arguments, splits, and reconciliations fueled tabloids. In a 2002 interview with Diane Sawyer, when asked about the image of a fallen angel, she rasped a laugh. "I flew too close to the sun." During that time, Whitney was pulled into messy entanglements, strained her voice to exhaustion, and grew isolated. Her career faltered after Just Whitney, 2002, and later comebacks only made one thing clear. The woman who once sang like a hymn was being crushed by that very voice. On February 11, 2012, Whitney Houston was found in a bathroom at the Beverly Hilton, just hours before she was to attend a pre-Grammy party. The world reeled. The Guardian wrote, "The last angel of Hollywood has fallen, not from weakness, but because the world gave her no chance to be human." Her funeral was broadcast worldwide. Aretha Franklin sang Amazing Grace, and Kevin Costner, her co-star in The Bodyguard, said through tears, "She just wanted to be loved, like all of us." Whitney left at 48, carrying a question Hollywood has never answered. Why are those who sing of love so often the loneliest? Those stars, from Sam Cooke to Whitney Houston, were not destroyed only by desire, but by the very hunger to be loved and live truthfully, something that glittering world never truly allowed. All glory fades, only the stories behind it endure. Those 15 names once enthralled the world, yet they also show that the greatest winner on screen can be the loser in real life. Fame, beauty, and power can make people forget the boundary between passion and self-destruction. Who among them do you find most tragic? Who was swept into Hollywood's ruthless spiral, and who walked into the shadows on their own? Leave a comment below to share your thoughts. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more secrets Hollywood has always wanted to bury.